Hey guys, today we're talking about two Netflix movies, two very different Netflix movies, and we're starting with Glass Onion or Glass Onion, a Knives Out story or something like that. But Glass Onion is very the name that everyone uses. Of course, this movie is directed by Rian Johnson, who is very famous for having directed The Last Jedi, which was met with very different criticisms from different people. To be honest, I mean, many people adore The Last Jedi, and I think that it's the best one of that Star Wars trilogy, and other people just hate the movie because it was wild, basically. And The Last Jedi had some things that were like not really great, but others are really good. So it's a mixed bag. So Rian Johnson was in a really tough place after Star Wars, and really no one knew if he was going to direct again or be in movies again because it was a lot of criticism. But of course, Netflix took the risk, and Rian Johnson actually changed the whole thing. He decided to go for mystery movies, and of course, out of that, we got Knives Out in 2019, and that was a very successful movie. Not only, not I mean, Netflix didn't own the movie back then. I think it was Lionsgate, but of course, Netflix saw the dollar signs and bought actually not only in Glass Onion but the next movie in this trilogy. Basically, at least it's now a trilogy. We don't know if it's going to have more movies, but it's a trilogy right now. Rian Johnson is writing the next screenplay, so we know that maybe in 2 years we will get the third installment of this series with Benoit Blanc, which is the detective portrayed by Daniel Craig. And of course, Rian Johnson, he's writing and directing this movie. And when that happens, some things are better than the others. And I really do think that Rian Johnson is a very prolific screenwriter. I think he had, again, good ideas in The Last Jedi. I don't really remember he was involved by himself in that screenplay, or he was joined by other people. I mean, no, in Star Wars there were like 14 people doing that screenplay, but in this one he's writing by himself, and it shows. I have to say that I think The Glass Onion is better than Knives Out. To be honest, Knives Out for me was a little bit too predictable and a little bit too small and boring. To be honest, I wasn't enjoying myself when I saw Knives Out. I thought it was going to be more than it was. I mean, for all the hype that I had heard. But Glass Onion is actually a very well constructed mystery, even though, again, I knew who the killer was from the first moment. I mean, if you know mysteries and you know these types of movies and stories in general, not only in movies but in literature, it's kind of obvious from the start who the murderer is if you pay attention to the clues. And there are some clues that are pretty obvious in these movies, which is kind of annoying because that's what happened in the first one. But I do think that Rian Johnson is making these movies not because of the mystery. I mean, that's not the central part of these movies. It's like the driving force, if you will. But it's not the main thing. The main thing in these movies is how you get from around that story, basically. And of course, the characters that really pull you around in this story are Benoit Blanc, portrayed by Daniel Craig, which is always fun. He's very interesting here. I think Daniel Craig is just had been just looking for a gig that was like relaxing or something, and he just found Knives Out, and he was really thrilled by that. And of course, now he's very successful with that, so why not? And the other person was Janelle Monáe in this movie, who really is the core of the story. If you have seen the movie, and I have to say that Janelle Monáe is a very talented actress. However, she has been very overlooked in the last few years, even if she has been in such fantastic movies and portraying such great characters, like in Harriet, like in Hidden Figures, like in Moonlight. I mean, Moonlight won Best Picture, and you would have thought, like, okay, she wasn't a Best Picture winner. Maybe someone is going to pay attention to her, and they really didn't. And of course, she's also a singer, so she has that career on the side, if you will. I mean, a very successful career, of course. But you would think that maybe she would have more work basically as an actress, but she doesn't. And I hope that after this movie, she's going to have more work because to me, she's the MVP of this movie. She's the best performer of the movie by far. I think she does so much and she really shows her potential in the movie. Other performers here are fine. I mean, Kate Hudson, she's fine, and Jessica Henwick is fine, and Edward Norton is doing the same thing that Edward Norton has been doing the last 20 years, to be honest. I mean, I have never really been an Edward Norton fan, and I mean, I don't get it when people say that he should have been Hulk all along instead of Mark Ruffalo. I'm like, sure, like, sure, go with that. You know, I think that's wild. But you know, people love him for some damn reason, and that's fine. I mean, he's a fine actor. I'm not saying he's awful. I'm just saying he's just a little bit one note for me. I don't. I mean, I understood what he wanted to do with the character, but it's so one. I mean, how many characters are they going to do in Hollywood that are basically Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg? I mean, like we got it, we get it. Hollywood, you're trying to make us see like, oh look, we're making fun of the powerful guys. Look at this. Like, we get it. Stop doing it because it's kind of annoying right now. We get it. We get it. Thank you, Hollywood. It's cool. And you know, the other perform. I mean, Dave Bautista. I mean, come on. I mean, John Cena and Dwayne the Rock Johnson and all of these people. They were wrestlers, and they want us to think they are actors, and they're not actors. They're just not actors, or at least not very good actors, to be honest. I think he's wooden as wooden can get, and I mean, I recently saw Black Adam, where you can see that Dwayne Johnson is just not an actor, and I don't have a clue why people think John Cena is either funny or good at acting, but I just don't see it. I mean, if they want to keep doing what they're doing, and they will continue because, you know, they draw the money, that's fine, but they're not actors. You can think whatever you want, but these people are not acting. They're just doing characters. Like, they're doing improv, basically. Kate Hudson, for example, again, I don't know when she was a good actress. I don't think she's a good actress. I think so many other people could have suited this character better, to be honest. But she's fine. She's okay in this movie. I'm not going to piss on her or whatever. I think Catherine Hahn is very entertaining, but again, Catherine Hahn can do so much more than what she did in this movie. I think, again, the one that was really well portrayed in the movie is Janelle Monáe, and of course Daniel Craig. And I think Ryan Johnson's screenplay is fantastic, for which he should be nominated for an Academy Award. I mean, I'm on that side of this movie, and I think the other aspect of this movie that is really good is the production design. The production design here is fantastic. I mean, all the environments of the house. I mean, the house is fantastic, but the island, the design of everything that you see in the movie is just fantastic. It's just really, really, really well done, and I appreciated it because it meant that they really cared to construct the story through production design, which is very interesting. So that's what I think of this movie. Please watch it. I think, again, this one is better than the first one. So let me let me hear what you are thinking about this one. And the other movie I wanted to talk about is Matilda the musical, which is more based on the musical that was playing in Broadway like maybe 10 years ago or less. I don't really know when the musical was done, but of course the musical is based from a book by Roald Dahl, which is very famous because we all know the movie, or maybe not all of us know about the movie from the 1990s, directed by Danny DeVito, which was, again, in Latin America, that movie is iconic. We all know Matilda, maybe because they had put it on like every channel here for like reruns of Matilda every fucking weekend, or it's like Home Alone. We all know Home Alone. It's like printed on our brain. So we have a really big appreciation for the story, and of course we wanted to I wanted to see how different this movie was, or how they wanted to make it different. And of course this one is a musical, and I think it's focused on children. And you're going to say, well, duh, the first one was too. And yeah, but but the point of the focus is different, because the first movie, it was a story for children, but from the perspective of a child. I think in this movie they wanted to do something very similar, but I think it's very obvious who built the story of this child. I mean, it's kind of weird to say, but in the Danny DeVito story, you really felt that it was the child telling the story from their point of view and how they saw things. That's why the headmistress in the first movie was so scary and the teacher was so endearing. I think that that's why you really see the point of view of the child. In this movie, I think they care more about doing the music, doing the performances, doing the dances, instead of showing that perspective of a child. And you may say, oh, but there's the whole story with the parents of Miss Honey and everything. But that's something that I didn't really care for, because they didn't really build that correctly. I mean, at the end, you're like, oh, she was telling the story of her parents, and you're like, what? She read her mind? What the fuck happened here? But it's what they chose to do, and sure, why not? Again, Mrs. Trunchbull, I think that's the name in English, portrayed by Emma Thompson here. Many people were praising Emma Thompson for this performance. No, they're praising the transformation, which is not that good if you really pay attention. She really does look like Emma Thompson, especially the shape of the body is kind of ridiculous, and the performance, actually, in the musical pieces, is just too happy. You're supposed to be scared of Mrs. Trunchbull, but you're not. I mean, it's kind of clownish, to be honest, in this movie. Yeah, she threatens kids a lot, and yes, she throws the girl like in the first movie, but I think that in the first one, it was more menacing. You really had reasons to believe how dangerous some of these situations are, and the people are, and how much contempt there was for Matilda, for example, from her parents in the first movie, because you really see how corrupt his dad is, how how little her mother cares for her, and how dangerous Mrs. Trunchbull is even in her house. But in here, you don't really see that. You're so focused on school and on the other children that you really lose that interesting aspect of the movie that makes it, from the child's perspective. Again, that's what I mean by that they missed that child's perspective that was so interesting in the Danny DeVito movie. I think here this movie is more for musical kids, theater kids that are really into Broadway. They're going to just love this. They're going to go crazy for this. But for people that just want to see a movie, this is not really the best one. This is not really the one that you want to see or appreciate. And I'm sorry for the buzzes, but I'm almost finished here. So yeah, I really encourage you to watch the first movie again. The 90s movie is really so well done. It's a really perfect comedy, and I appreciate that people love that movie more now than they did when it was released. I don't think this musical has the same aspects and the same things that make it so endearing, made Matilda so endearing for that first movie. I mean, this one is fun, but you don't really keep much from this movie after watching it. And the best part, I think the best performance here is not done by the child, by the parents, or by Emma Thompson. Is actually done by Lashana Lynch as the teacher, as Miss Honey, although she has very limited screenplay to work with, to be honest. I mean, if she had had the same things that Beth Davis had in the first movie, I think she would have done so much better with the role. And Lashana Lynch is very talented, so I would have wanted her to be like bigger and more the character, if you will, but she did a fantastic job anyway. So yeah, that's what I think about these two movies. Tell me what you think about them, and yeah, I will keep doing these for whatever movies I see next. Thank you so much. Goodbye.